ballistic missile with multiple warheads, armed with some of the most toxic, virulent organisms known to science. Organisms with the potency, it's claimed, to kill the world's population several times over. Well, as you're about to see in this special investigation, it is not a scenario. Biological terrorism has become a reality. Tonight, Diane Sawyer investigates what has the potential to become this world's apocalypse now.
They were somewhere in this crowd at the Super Bowl. At the Olympics.
The President of the United States.
And here at the State of the Union. A special Army unit standing by in case of a biological attack. And over at the FBI, they're training a hazardous materials or hazmat unit. A state-of-the-art biological SWAT team of scientists, marksmen, hostage negotiators. And the Marines have a unit called Seabirth for treating the casualties of a biological attack. It was created by a secret presidential directive, PDD 39, only parts of which have been declassified. The document directs government agencies to begin preparing for a new and terrifying reality. Listen to Colonel David Franz, who took us through USAMRIID, the Army's ultra-secure lab for defense research. A top authority on biological weapons, this is his cautious prediction.
Low, but the likelihood of there being an attack someplace in the United States is fairly high, probably in the next 5 years.
Here at USAMRIID, job requirements include a wide array of vaccinations. In the secure labs where they're researching vaccines, they wear vinyl suits filled with pressurized air. If the suit is punctured, the airflow blows the dangerous germs away from the hole. The rooms are similarly sealed and pressurized, because here they know what these weapons can do, that germ attacks are not only possible, but they've happened before. September 1984, in a small town in northwest Oregon. At first, 4 or 5 people complain of fever, violent nausea. Then in a week, the number has risen to 30. After 2 weeks, nearly 200. It's salmonella, and when it's over, 751 people are sick, including babies, nearly a tenth of the town. It was a mystery. No one knew that the cult on the edge of town, the Rajneeshis, twirling in their strange, ecstatic dances, also had an underground tunnel leading to a secret lab where they cultivated salmonella in liquid. And they took vials of it into local restaurants, secretly pouring them over the salad bars, in the salad dressing, in coffee creamers. The mystery was solved only because an informant came forward who said the Rajneeshi were trying to make people too sick to vote against cult interests in a local election. More than 10 years later, May 1995, another incident that would send a shudder through the American intelligence community. You remember the Japanese doomsday cult Om Shinrikyo, Supreme Truth, how members of the cult placed plastic bags full of nerve gas in Tokyo subway cars at rush hour. 5,000 people writhed in agony, in convulsions, gasping for breath. 12 of them died. But the even greater terror was the discovery that the 10,000-member cult also had its own lab and microbiologists, funded by $300 million in assets. As the half-blind leader of the group called for Armageddon, one of his top scientists tried unsuccessfully to spray deadly bacteria from the top of a Tokyo building. There were special briefcases with fans which could blow germs through the air. The group set up offices in New York and went shopping in Africa for the lethal Ebola virus. Ebola causes a grotesque death. The brain, the organs hemorrhage, actually bleed out.
And there are enough particles here to infect 1 human, 20 human, 500 humans.
At least.
Ebola, which spreads mainly through contact with infected blood. But Franz says the virus is hard to get, dangerous to grow, and sunlight can destroy it. So he says Ebola doesn't keep him up at night, when terrorists can easily take aim with something so much better. That Saturday night special of biological gunslingers, anthrax.
And if you look at the countries that have attempted to proliferate biological agents over the last 50 years, anthrax comes out at the top in every case. I believe that's because It's so very, very stable. It's the most stable biological organism.
Stable because anthrax produces spores, a dormant version of the bacterium. Neither sunlight nor temperature has any effect on them. A lot of animals carry anthrax, and the spores have survived in horsehair for 100 years. And unlike a virus, which needs live cells to grow, you get some anthrax from an infected animal or medical research company, and it thrives in a liquid nutrient and heat. In a couple of days, 1 milliliter of anthrax culture can produce 1 billion spores.
We think the human lethal dose is between 8 and 10,000 spores, so you need a pretty good whiff of it. And yet, if there's an aerosol cloud of this coming by, that's not hard to do.
After a period of about 3 days, people would begin to notice, some of them, that there was some kind of a new cold going around the city.
Richard Preston is a journalist and author of both the Hot Zone and the Cobra event. He did extensive research on biological weapons for his books.
You cough, you get a tightness of the chest, you feel coldy. And then you begin to feel better. You begin to recover. This is known as the anthrax eclipse.
And that's the cruel deception inside anthrax. You don't think you need treatment, when in fact, only massive antibiotics in the first 24 hours will keep the accumulation of toxins from killing you. So much antibiotic is needed that 1 million infected civilians would take only 2 weeks to use up the entire national supply.
Then on about day 4, you suddenly develop lethal anthrax pneumonia, and your lungs fill up with what is known as anthrax sputum. You simply stop breathing, and that these anthrax victims will be describing to the doctor how they feel, and they will die in mid-sentence.
So what would happen if there were another war with Iraq, since Saddam Hussein has admitted making enough anthrax to kill everyone on Earth several times? And he has warheads, which can carry liquid anthrax 400 miles. Well, to begin, American soldiers are even now getting anthrax vaccinations.
Ready?
And there are battlefield detectors, which identify an anthrax release 30 to 45 minutes later. So let's say if we were in the Gulf War again, we would routinely suction parts of the air just to be testing all the time to see if there were any agents out there.
If it occurred today, I believe we would, yes. The problem with that is, where do you put your detectors?
There's also an experimental version of a bunker buster bomb, designed to search out a bioweapon site, burrow into it, and explode, burning away any deadly germs. But if this new weapon doesn't work, dry anthrax spores could plume out on the wind. Preston says it looks a lot like this dried cocoa.
You can see that it's a powdered, brownish material, and then it goes into the air very easily.
And we know a bit about how deadly that can be because of what happened here. We're in the town that was once called Sverdlovsk in the Ural Mountains of Russia. In 1979, in that military compound, where no one knew they were doing biological research, apparently one night someone forgot to turn on the filtration system, and a small amount of anthrax, probably no more than this, went up in a gust and floated out on the wind. It blew over a neighborhood just south of the military plant in a plume that stretched 10 miles. American scientists say the number of dead, 62. But the director of a military hospital there told us she documented 259 victims. But the KGB confiscated all her records. The infected were treated with everything available: penicillin, cephalosporin, chloramphenicol, anti-anthrax globulin, corticosteroids. The victims' relatives remember their agony.
When he came home in the morning, he said, "Call the ambulance." His chest, his stomach, everything was burning up inside. Something was coming out of her mouth, and later they told me these were parts of her liver covered in blood. I asked a person who was in the ward with him how he died. The man said he was convulsing and screaming, "Help me, help me."
For more than a decade, the Russians refused to admit that their military had released the anthrax. But these two local pathologists who suspected the truth risked their lives by hiding samples of infected brain tissue, hoping someday they could send it to the U.S. for confirmation.
I just hoped that one day we would be able to show the rest of the world what we knew. And this has now happened, because all these people that died should not have died in vain.
Next, we visit a secret plant deep in Siberia, where they're creating deadly organisms such as a cross between Ebola and smallpox.
It's about time we had some good news.
I felt like jumping up and down. Hurrah! The greatest feeling.
TV3's making your dreams come true. Race cars, romance, renovations. Someone even wanted to sing with the symphony orchestra.
The dream team are coming to the rescue.
With Nick Iden and Alison M.
And it's about time your mum had a night out.
Is that right?
That's how I feel as if I'm in a dream.
Well, do you like surprises?
No.
A new feel-good series full of special surprises.
Genuine shock.
That is beautiful.
You'll never know when they'll pop up.
Oh my God.
Do you like that?
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, you saucy thing.
And make your day.
You have embarrassed your mother.
Caltech's Dreams Come True starts Tuesday, 7:30 on 3.
Back in 1969, the United States took the lead in ending the development of biological warfare. A treaty was drawn up and the Soviets signed it, saying that they would finish too. But that was a lie. In fact, they were about to launch the most terrifying and sophisticated biological weapons program the world had ever seen. The West didn't believe the Russians could deploy germ warfare weapons. They could. The West didn't believe they were passing information on to other countries like Iraq. It seems they did. And the big question, is the Russian military still at it today?
A mysterious satellite photo, a frightening discovery. In 1989, the CIA learned that this vast complex of buildings in the depths of Siberia was the heart of what is called black biology. Vector, where nature's viruses were being harnessed as weapons. We are the first American television team to travel here, the first to pass through these gates.
It is a special plane.
It is a gigantic labyrinth of corridors sealed off by airlocks. We see rooms of aging equipment, animals kept for experimentation, and aerosol chambers where they're sprayed with disease. We see bioreactors where virus cultures were grown and harvested. But Vector claims today that the research is only peaceful. We are not allowed to see Vector's bank of 10,000 viruses, one of the biggest collections in the world, including 140 strains of smallpox, 3 kinds of Ebola. The scientists said they didn't want to tempt terrorists to steal it. Nor can we enter this building, building number 6. As we said, some American officials worry that biological weapons research continues.
What was your official title?
I was first deputy chief of a main directorate Biopreparat.
So you were second in command?
Yeah.
Ken Alibek, the man who has been called the most important defector ever on biological warfare, speaking publicly for the first time. He confirms that as late as 1992, just before he left Russia, they had directly targeted American cities in the event of war for a biological first strike.
Plague, smallpox, anthrax should be used against the United States.
These were targeted at the United States? They were.
Yeah.
Why were those particular biological weapons targeted for the United States? Why plague? Why smallpox?
Contagious, high mortality rate, can cause serious panic, can cause absolute destruction of vital activity.
How long would it have taken for you to deploy a biological weapon?
2 to 3 days.
And for each city, not just one disease, a cocktail.
Against one city, at least 3, 4, 5 agents could be applied.
How would the missile carry it?
Each missile has 10 warheads. And inside of each warhead, special bomblets filled with biological weapons.
It would have worked?
Yeah.
How many people could they have killed?
The entire population of Earth several times.
Easily?
Easily.
And he told us the weapon that intrigued the Russians most is a virus the world thinks it has conquered: smallpox.
The amount of children who will be dead will be very serious.
Remember when we all got these? The scar from your smallpox vaccination when you were a child. Well, did you know that they stopped giving the vaccinations back in 1971? And the disease was declared eradicated worldwide by 1979. And since these shots only last 10 years, today no one is immune. Again, author, journalist Richard Preston.
Ordinary smallpox begins with something that's a lot like chicken pox. You get small blisters, especially on the face, chest, and hands. But then as the days go by, the blisters just get larger and larger. You get a terrible high fever that comes and goes. You eventually go into shock. And then as the blisters burst, you can get secondary infections of bacteria invading the breaks in your skin.
And 100 cases of smallpox could lead to 20 to 30,000 new ones in a few days. And a third of them will die.
There would be a need, essentially, to vaccinate all 250 million people in the United States in the event of a terrorist release of smallpox anywhere in the population.
And how much vaccine is available?
Currently, there are about 7 million doses of smallpox vaccine on hand. If there was a major smallpox outbreak, the smallpox vaccine would become more valuable than diamonds.
Supposedly, there are only 2 supplies of smallpox left in the world. One here at Vector, and one at the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. But Alibek told us that in 1990, the Russians devised a way to produce additional smallpox virus in a matter of days, and not by ounces, by the ton. He said it's curious that even today, so much research in Russia is about virulence. Remember the building we couldn't enter? Building 6 is where they work on smallpox. This is Sergei Nityosov, Deputy Director of Vector.
What guarantee is there that this is not still offensive weapons research?
It is still a confidence, just a confidence between people.
Alibek told us there are a lot of other weapons in Russia's unparalleled arsenal.
52 biological agents could be used in biological weapons.
So you're saying you'd have to vaccinate people or protect them somehow against 52 different agents to make them safe from biological weapons?
You know, first of all, that's impossible. Impossible because nobody will survive after 52 vaccinations.
There are highly resistant strains of tularemia, which causes high fever and destroys the respiratory system. And there's plague, that scourge of the Middle Ages, an infection that causes skin sores and collapse of the lungs. Some of the agents are quirky. We asked Richard Preston about brucella.
Brucella is a bacterium that can invade your central nervous system, your brain, and it makes you loopy for a period of about a month. It doesn't kill you. It makes you very bad-tempered and very unstable and unable to make decisions.
And Alibek told us about a variant of Ebola called the Marburg virus. He remembers when his friend, a fellow scientist, accidentally pricked his hand and became infected.
It was a very terrible situation. He was dying for 2 weeks.
How?
Bleeding from mouth, from nose, from skin. The most terrible thing at that time was he understood everything.
He didn't know that his organs would be harvested to create more poison.
And you know that maybe the most terrible thing, a virus removed from his body was used for manufacturing biological weapons.
Did you ever say to yourself, what are we doing?
You know, I'm sorry, but for a long period of time, I thought everything was right. We thought that the United States was
doing it too.
So the Russians simply lied. And when the Americans wanted to come for an inspection, Alibek says under Gorbachev's orders, it took 2 years to hide the equipment.
Equipment for filling special bomblets.
And that was all hidden?
Everything was hidden. Yeah, hidden, of course.
Even so, the Americans who read those first inspection reports were flabbergasted.
I was amazed at the quantities of material that they could produce.
Bill Patrick, Chief of Research and Development in the American Bioweapons Program, before it was canceled in 1969. He told us that Americans had tested deadly agents on sheep, and we learned for the first time, they also tested on humans. They were Seventh-day Adventists who refused to fight in World War II but volunteered for exposure to a kind of debilitating fever, Q fever, and tularemia.
And our medical people closely supervised these tests. After you had fever for 3 days, if I recall, antibiotic therapy would be initiated and the disease would be cured. I hasten to add that none of these people had any after effects. They all survived, and insofar as I know today, they're living a very happy and peaceful life. Those of us who worked in the biological warfare laboratories felt that we were patriots, that we were doing something that was very important to the United States.
As we toured Vector, we noticed the crumbling walls, how few police, how antiquated the security protecting the huge biological arsenal. And these top scientists told us they haven't been paid in 4 months.
We earn money in different fields.
2,000 people have already left Vector, and no one knows how many, if any, have gone to Iraq. Alibek worries that the Russian military is still trying to create new weapons, and that even the scientists at Vector may not know how their work is being used.
Do you know what the military is doing?
Not.
And what would that next stage in biological warfare be? Superviruses, or genetically altered bacteria? A Russian military scientist recently published a report in the British journal Vaccine, announcing the creation of a vaccine-proof anthrax. The U.S. asked to see it. The Russians refused. And if that's not scary enough, Alibek says, if you read the recent Russian scientific publications, it's clear they can now genetically marry smallpox with a brain virus called VEE. And he believes they have yet another deadly genetic merger, smallpox and Ebola.
Smallpox and Ebola.
Yeah,
combined.
smallpox and Ebola virus. In this case, mortality rate about 90%, up to 100%. No treatment techniques.
You say it can be done or it has been done?
Let me say, looks like they've already performed this work.
Have you done it here?
No.
Would it surprise you if one of the people who believes that smallpox and Ebola have been married is Alibekov?
He may believe in it. He is now in another position, and he has to earn money in another country by probably such rumors.
We've been told by a Russian scientist that there's a high degree of certainty that the Russians were able to genetically alter smallpox and insert Ebola. True?
I don't know.
Possible?
I think he's probably the one to ask.
But what would an Ebola smallpox cocktail do?
I wouldn't want to speculate on that.
Since I came to this country, I did a lot to help to stop these programs. God will forgive me for what I did in Russia, in the Soviet Union.
Next, the risk of a terrorist attack and what can be done to deal with it.
April 28th, 1995.
Everyone was really happy to be going somewhere that we've been told was a really gorgeous place.
A viewing platform in the South Island's Paparoa National Park collapsed.
It was just this almighty, indescribable noise, really.
14 young people died as a result of the 30-metre plunge.
They were so vibrant, they were so full of life.
The hardest part for me was telling Marjorie that her son was dead.
For the rest of my life, I will always mourn that son of mine.
2 weeks before the disaster's 3rd anniversary, TV3 brings you the full story of Cave Creek.
We couldn't believe that someone like Doc would do something like that.
And we decided we'd fly Scotty out next, and I turned round and he'd stopped breathing.
Cave Creek, inside New Zealand, Tuesday on 3.
If you were my kids, I'd punish you.
If we were your kids, we could punish ourselves.
For the very first time. The Little Rascals coming up next on TV3.
With Iraq on the scene, it would clearly be foolish to discount the possibility of germ warfare on an international scale. But at least you'd have an idea of where the threat was coming from and who was responsible. However, what really scares those in the know about this deadly business is the possibility of just one person with a grudge getting their hands on anthrax or smallpox, then spreading it, who knows where or when. As Diane Sawyer's special report continues, she asks, could this happen? And just as important, what can be done to protect those exposed?
Three experts on the prospect of biological terrorism. Colonel David Franz of USAMRIID.
I'm concerned more about the boat in a harbor or the truck driving through a city or whatever than I am about the big battlefield scenario.
Robert Blitzer is chief of the FBI's Domestic Terrorism and Counterterrorism Planning Section. He says the public doesn't hear about everything.
I would say at any given time, there's about 50 to 60 investigations ongoing. If someone wanted to do it badly enough, I think they could do it.
I can tell you it is not a matter of if this will occur, it's a matter of when it occurs and where it occurs and how much panic and how much death are we willing to accept at the time that it occurs.
Michael Osterholm is chief of disease epidemiology at the Minnesota Department of Public Health and a terrorism consultant. He knows about one near miss close to home. 6 years ago, a woman walked into the local sheriff's office in Minnesota with a small red Folgers coffee can. It belonged to her husband, and inside was a strange powder and small bottle of green gel. The powder was ricin, a deadly biotoxin made from ordinary castor beans. It destroys your circulatory system. The gel was a liquid which makes it seep into the skin. Her husband and 3 other men were arrested. The men were reportedly members of a local militia and said they were planning to kill IRS agents, U.S. Marshals, and the local sheriff. They said they made the ricin from a $12 kit ordered in a catalog. The 4 were sentenced to up to 4 years in prison, the first people convicted under the Bioweapons Anti-Terrorism Act. 2 remain behind bars. And it seems that if catalogs don't have what you want, research warehouses will. You'll remember Larry Wayne Harris, who was arrested twice in 1995 for possession of bubonic plague, and again last week for what turned out to be inactive anthrax. He said he got the anthrax culture from an animal, but the bubonic plague cells from a supply house. Harris, a self-described former member of the Aryan Nation, says a biological attack will happen.
I'll tell you one thing that I know almost beyond any shadow of a doubt, is that there is groups in the United States armed with biologicals. But they're armed with a very crude biological. It's effective.
You mean anti-government groups?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
White supremacist groups?
Anybody.
In this interview, 7 days before that second arrest, he told us how he acquired the samples of bubonic plague. By claiming to be a registered research lab and writing to this bio-research supply house in Rockville, Maryland. American Type Culture Collection. The same place, it turns out, sold a salmonella culture to the Rajneeshi and sold Iraq its first strain of anthrax lethal to humans.
May 1995, you call American Type Culture Collection and order 3 samples of the organism that causes bubonic plague.
Yes, most definitely.
Why? What for?
Basically, the research that I was doing running my book, when I was writing my book.
But you just went to a print shop and ordered this up, this stationery with this letterhead on it.
There is no requirements. There's no permit requirements or anything of this nature.
Where did you have this bubonic plague?
Glove compartment of the car.
In the glove compartment?
Sure. There is no danger there. If it was in a freeze-dried form, it would take several hours to know how to rehydrate it. In other words, to bring it back to an active state, get it back to a grown state, and get it grown back out again. There was no danger.
This stuff really excites you, doesn't it?
How to defend against it excites me. In other words, how defense is something that offense is easy. Defense is hard.
What all could you get? What
From
could you
nature?
get right tomorrow if you wanted?
Anthrax. It would take me a few more days to get some cholera. It would take me maybe a few more days to get some plague. It's easy. Botulism is the one that concerns me because anti-botulism toxin is very hard to make. I could do it, but it's hard to make. Anthrax, on the other hand, is easy to make.
So what on earth is going on at American Type Culture Collection? Can anybody buy deadly germs? The company refused our request for an interview, but wrote to us, saying that they comply fully with all federal regulations. And in recent years, there are new regulations requiring requests like these to be screened by federal agencies.
I'm more concerned about the Larry Wayne Harrises who are not public, the people who really don't have a close affiliation with a specific group, but think like groups think.
Osterholm said these are some of his most feared scenarios, the nightmares that keep him awake. A car drives through a town spewing dry anthrax from an exhaust pipe.
I can't imagine in any major city in this country with a major release of anthrax that there'll be ever enough antibiotics appropriate for that illness on hand when that illness first starts to show up.
Or what about a hidden aerosol device spraying botulism?
If we had a large botulism outbreak in Minnesota, we wouldn't have enough respirators in the state to even begin to approach that kind of situation. And there is nothing that professionally or personally scares me more and makes me feel more vulnerable as a professional and as a parent.
And that other nightmare, something contagious like smallpox, either liquid in an aerosol or freeze-dried.
If you freeze-dry smallpox virus, it will last for quite some time.
And is it active or inactive in that form?
In dried form, it's inactive, but the minute it hits a moist membrane, such as your lung, it comes alive.
Thank you for waiting, ladies and gentlemen. At this time,
What if someone who was vaccinated carried smallpox onto a 747 and released it? 400 plane passengers could walk around for 2 days, not knowing that they had become human biological weapons. Or what about a mall with a central ventilation system?
I think it would be the closest thing to a living hell that I could imagine. This is really a doomsday scenario that I don't think many people could ever believe would really happen in modern-day medicine with all the tools that we have, but it's real.
But don't we run the risk of panicking people?
I really don't think so. I really don't think so. If there was a major release of anthrax into the air in New York City, there would be a potential for panic. The best way to deal with that kind of panic is for the government to be ready to rush medicines into the population and assure people that there are medicines that can be used to treat anthrax.
You're going to be hearing more and more people who are what you might call the seasoned, old, wise members of the public health community coming forward saying, I would never talk about this issue before because I didn't want to give people the idea. But now we as a group recognize that there are people who have the means to do it, who have the agents to do it, and have the will to do it.
There was a time when terrorist attacks used to happen in faraway places. But times have changed.
This is a training video for educating firemen, policemen, EMS crews, what are called first responders.
We have come to realize the threat is not only foreign, but domestic as well.
As part of the training, they're told to seal the area, don protective gear, call for backup. Army or FBI units trained to handle hazardous material. But in Washington, D.C. last April, the city's emergency response was put to the test. Rescue workers rushed to the scene after receiving a call about a strange package left at the B'nai B'rith offices. When they opened it, it was marked anthrax. Streets were cordoned off. EMS workers were literally hosed down after examining the contents. It turned out to be a hoax, but an instructive one for the workers. They made big mistakes. For one thing, if it had been anthrax, all those workers would have been sick or dead. They forgot the first rule of biological events: keep a safe distance, call for backup. But critics say the U.S. training program has problems that go far beyond that.
Probably the greatest misconception we have in this country is that we are actually really preparing ourselves as a country for a biologic terrorist event.
Again, expert Dr. Osterholm from the Minnesota Public Health Department.
It won't be first responders, it won't be firemen, it won't be policemen who will be responding. It'll be emergency room physicians and nurses. It'll be the public health agencies.
He says if health workers aren't prepared, they won't recognize the symptoms of unusual diseases brought on by a bio-attack. They can become casualties themselves. And yet Osterholm says these workers are going virtually untrained.
There hasn't been a single alert put out to the public health system of this country. No letters, no phone calls, no suggestions about how to coordinate the situation.
New York turns out to be the exception. After the World Trade Center bombing, the city spent millions in training and equipment.
I think one thing we've done is we have focused on bioterrorism.
Jerry Hauer, head of the city's Office of Emergency Management. He says emergency rooms in New York have been trained to recognize a pattern of deadly viruses and bacteria.
We've looked at the medical care that would be needed, the outreach programs that would be needed, getting antibiotics in and vaccines in.
So what about vaccination? As we said, American soldiers are getting vaccinated against anthrax, but the rest of us? Virtually everyone we talked to said mass vaccinations are not the best defense against what we fear.
I think it's really premature to suggest that we need to vaccinate our populations against smallpox or anthrax at this point.
That's impossible. Impossible because nobody will survive after 52 vaccinations.
I think in all of these things you have to look at the risk-benefit ratio, and I don't believe in the case of anthrax that we need to immunize the civilians. I believe we do the force because they are the ones most likely to be exposed to an agent like anthrax.
Terrorists like to target civilians.
Certainly. But who are you going to immunize? It's like an emerging disease outbreak. It might be a small population in one city that would be exposed. And I believe we should focus on being able to identify the attack very quickly and get people on antibiotics and work out the logistics of doing that.
In a statement submitted to Congress, President Clinton said that antidotes, antibiotics, new treatments should be stored in emergency warehouses around the country. But so far, according to the National Security Council, there are only enough supplies to treat casualties in one major American city.
Can you imagine a time when we have a sort of, I guess, medicine chest bomb shelter, the way we did in the 50s, where we all get our homes equipped with something?
Well, I really don't expect that in our society. With transportation and communication the way it is today, I think we can move into an area. And you have to realize, too, that unlike a chemical attack, you have a little bit of time with a biological attack.
Which is one of the reasons the military has only 2 hospital isolation rooms for handling a bio-level 4, the most contagious or deadly attack. Here's how it would work. Out in the field, an infected person...
The new anymore. Should just be whatever. What? 7 Go Mad in Peru, or something like that.
7 Go Mad in Peru, brought to you by Down to Earth, proud sponsors of our world.
After 60 Minutes, Emma Thompson stars with Sir Anthony Hopkins in Remains of the Day, and Backchat with Bill Ralston investigates a place where paradise gives way to apartments.
Tonight's episode of 60 Minutes is proudly brought to you in association with Singapore Airlines.